everyone, welcome to Goodknits. I'm Sherry, a Canadian knitter living in Amsterdam with my kitty, Ollie. I think he's going to be a bit of a troublemaker this video. Today I thought it could be fun to just take you through some of my all-time favorite knits, the ones that have really stood the test of time, I reach for even if I made them years ago. I know a lot of you have found me through my wear test videos where I'm going back and reviewing knits, but those tend to be more from the last 6 to 12 months, letting you know how things fit into my wardrobe. And if you're interested in those videos, I have a whole series. I will link it in the show notes. But I've never really done a recent video looking back at the winter knits that I've made and letting you know which are my all-time favorites. So today I'm just going to take you through the 5 that I narrowed it down to and talk you through what makes those pieces so special. I'd also love to know from you in the comments which pieces you made maybe years ago that you still reach for and why. I think it's always interesting, you know, as knitters, we are always making new things and we tend to just wear the things that have most recently come off our needles, but probably we all have a piece that we made really early in our knitting journey that we still love. And I think that's so special because you're learning so much at the beginning phase. And I think looking back at my knits for this video, I was really proud of myself for a couple of pieces that I made really early on, because I do still really love them and I still wear them and get compliments. So I would love to know if you have those kind of knits and what they are, and maybe even link to an Instagram photo or a Ravelry page. I'm very curious to see them. And for this video, I'm going to go from my oldest knits to my newest and just do a quick little recap about what I love. The first one I want to talk about is my sweater number 8 for My Favorite Things Knitwear. Now, this is one of the first sweaters that I ever made. I think it was number 3, and that was after some very, very basic sweaters. It actually took me almost an entire year to complete. I cast it on January 2021, and I finished it in November 2021. So definitely this was a long-term knit, and I think it was just, I was getting so tired of this 2x2 ribbing, but it is so beautiful. This is one of those patterns where I kept seeing it on Instagram and just was so in love with it. And I will admit, even when I see it now on Instagram, which is far less, I'm still always really taken by it. I love everybody's version that they've done. So this is just really one of those favorite pieces that I have. I will say I remember the pattern being quite overwhelming when I opened this. So there's not a lot of complexity here. There's no German short rows. There's no intense shaping or anything. But this was, you know, as one of the first sweaters, quite overwhelming because you are doing this nice little shoulder detail with the 2x2 rib. And there was a lot going on as a beginner knitter. And I really think, you know, for the most part, I don't really have any mistakes in this, at least not that I can see or remember. The only thing with this piece is I was so over the 2x2 rib at the end, and I really just wanted to get this done and finally wear it because winter was, you know, coming up. It was November, and I'd already had this on my needles for a year. So I got really fed up and I really bound off too early for both the sleeves and the body. I don't think I gauge swatched on this because I did not see the importance of it at the time. I had no idea how much this was going to grow. Because of the 2x2 rib, it ended up expanding widthwise, but not necessarily lengthwise. So I did a quick measurement of my gauge on this before filming. And my stitch gauge is perfect, but my row gauge is 2 off. So definitely I ended up a little bit shorter after blocking, and I've already done multiple attempts to stretch this as much as possible. I made this in the Filcolana Arwetta and Filcolana Tilia, both in the color Light Truffle. I absolutely love this color on me. I really want to make more pieces in this. This goes with everything. So I really tend to throw it over dresses a lot of times, or the other day I actually wore it with my staple skirt, which is purple, and they just went perfectly. I really love the yarn combo that I used on this because it hasn't pilled at all. So the Filcolana Arwetta is a merino with a bit of nylon in it, I think about 25%. And I really had no idea what that meant at the time, what superwash was, what nylon was. This yarn has just held up, and still to this day, the Filcolana Arwetta is one of my favorite yarns that I've ever worked with. It's very affordable. They have a beautiful color range, and I use it for all kinds of things. I'm actually making a Musselburgh hat in it right now. I'm so happy with it. So my yarn choice on this was fantastic. If I do say so myself, I believe it was the yarn that was called for in the pattern. The color choice was great. The only thing maybe a little bit off is the fit, but I do find, especially pairing it with skirts and dresses, it tends to look better that way. So I don't wear this a lot with jeans. I do really just tend to dress it up a little bit more. I would say the pattern was pretty clear on this. The only downside is, from what I remember, there's no German short rows. So definitely on the back, I notice it rides up a little bit. If I were to make this again, I would definitely add a little bit of length, either through short rows at the back, or maybe even some bust shaping, like the bust darts on this, if I could figure out how to do that in 2x2 rib. This is a pattern that I continue to think about and wonder, why haven't I made a second version of this? So this is one of those pieces that I might revisit at some point and make again, and actually do the short rows to add some length, maybe even, extend the body and the sleeves a little bit. I don't have this yarn anymore, so unfortunately I can't do it on this one. This is just a piece that, I love. It goes with everything that I have, and I get so many compliments every time I wear it. People can't believe that I made this for myself. So this is definitely something that I'm extremely proud of, and is probably maybe my favorite knit that I've ever made, just because it looks so unique and there's just so much to love about it. Then the next knit is my Louvre Sweater by Pepita Knit. So this was actually the next sweater that I made, and based on my Ravelry notes, it looks like I literally cast off the sweater number 8, and then I think even the same day I went ahead and cast this one on. I made it because I participated in a CAL. I can't remember exactly who hosted it, but I was hoping it would give me some motivation to just do this a little bit faster. Unfortunately, it didn't. This piece also took me almost a year. So I cast it on November 2021 and I finished it October 2022. But this one was so worth it. So this is knit up in the Sadness Garn Pure Gint in the color Deep Petroleum. It's held on its own. There's no mohair with it. And it's just so beautiful. This is definitely quite a bold color. It is one of my favorite kind of bluish greens. It's maybe not the exact perfect color for me. It's a tad bright, but I love it all the same. I don't really care. The only thing with this Louvre is I don't get to wear it as much as I like, simply because it is DK weight. It's fairly heavy. This is a 100% Norwegian wool. And for the Amsterdam climate, I just find it to be a little bit too much most of the time in the winter. But we did have a cold snap about 2 weeks ago, and I actually wore this 3 days in a row because I was just so excited that it was cold enough to wear that I wanted to take every opportunity that I could. He's really just hanging out here today, which is nice. I thought he'd be more of a troublemaker. So yeah, when I do get the opportunity to wear this, especially if I go on more like winter vacations to Austria, I definitely bring this and I wear it. The fit on this is great. This is 20 centimeters of positive ease. I double checked my gauge right before this, and surprisingly, for this being one of my first sweaters, I did hit gauge nearly perfect, minus 1 stitch. So this actually should have had a tiny bit more ease to it, but this is perfect. And I wouldn't have taken myself originally as somebody that liked really oversized pieces, but I think this one just has such a nice fit to it, with the raglan fit and then that boxy feel. This also has German short rows, so it was the first time that I'd ever worked them. I was so nervous, and it really worked out. I definitely learned through this piece how important those German short rows are. This is just one of those pieces where I can't say enough good things about it. I really love it to this day, and I wish I had more opportunity to wear it. I am also considering maybe making another one, but potentially doing it in a lighter weight yarn, maybe a mohair and merino held together, and then doing a shorter collar. I think part of the problem with this is it also sits quite high, and with that Norwegian wool, it can be a little bit scratchy at times. I still don't wear anything under it, but it's not always the coziest thing to wear. So maybe for the Amsterdam climate, knitting it in a slightly different fiber with a shorter neck would actually work better. But I love the fit on this. And so typically I'll wear this with jeans. I think that's how it works best for me. And again, I get so many compliments every time I wear this. Yeah, and then this color in general is just so gorgeous. The deep petrol is still one of my favorite colors. I'm always drawn to this one. Following my Louvre Sweater, which I said I finished in, what was it, October 2022, I noticed as I was going through my Ravelry to prepare for this video, I had quite a big gap, about 2 years, where I didn't make anything that I loved, at least from a winter knit perspective. I did make pieces that I enjoyed in the end, like my cardigan number 4 and my cardi jumper. But the thing is, I really had a tendency to knit with colors that didn't suit me. So grays and these like icy white grays. So I started my YouTube channel in August 2023. And I do think the second I started this, I felt more pressure to knit and have content to talk about. So I ended up knitting a lot of pieces that maybe were a bit more trendy because that's the content I thought people would want to see, or I just knit things without really considering how they were going to fit into my wardrobe. Because as much as I'd already done my color analysis at the time, I still wasn't being really intentional about what I needed in my wardrobe and what I was actually going to wear. So I made a lot of poor decisions, I would say, in about a 2-year period of knits. Definitely there's pieces in there that I still wear and I really like, but I wouldn't consider them my all-time favorites. That brings me to the next knit that I really love, and that didn't happen until 2024. That is my Fancy Pepita skirt by Anne-Catherine Stoll. Now, I actually knit this as part of a test knit for her, and it's one of only 2 that I've ever done. I really don't participate in test knits. I don't like the pressure of it. I will wait until the pattern's out. But this is a pattern where I saw her teasing it on Instagram. She had a black and white version. I just found it so interesting, and I really wanted a knit skirt in my wardrobe. So I think I'd already made the Milady's dress at this point, and I wanted a skirt. I really like that one, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna put my name in for the test knit and see what happens, and I got it. This is knit up in a gorgeous yarn. It is the Lana Grossa Landlust Alpaca Merino 160, which is a alpaca merino blend. So I knit this in colors 405 and 404. And most people ended up knitting it in black and white because of this jacquard houndstooth pattern. That tended to be the more classic look. I really wanted a subtle pattern, and I'm really happy that I did that because it's made this piece very wearable for me. This was also the very first color work pattern that I've ever done. This felt really approachable because it was just 2 colors. It was just the front and back panel, and actually originally I thought it was just going to be the front panel and then the back would be easy. But this also had a really interesting construction method, and I'm honestly tempted to make this one again just to do the process. So you knit the front and back jacquard panels. So you knit those as separate pieces. You block them to stretch them to the correct width and length. So I blocked those at the same time and made sure that they were really exactly the same. And then what you do is you, along the jacquard panel, and you knit up on both sides, and then you do a 3-needle bind off to join those 2 pieces for the side seam. Then you pick up along the bottom and you do the I-cord, then you pick up for the waist and you do a folded over waistband where you sew in the elastic. And actually I did a slightly different construction method than she called for in the pattern there. And this fits me perfect. I love this skirt so much. The first time I knit those side panels, I did actually make them too long. So I ended up having to rip out the 3-needle bind off. Thankfully, I was wise enough to put in a lifeline before I knit those because I kind of thought maybe I'd added a little bit too much length. Sorry if he ends up hitting the microphone. Ollie's on my lap right now. So I did make it easier for myself to actually go back and fix that. And I'm glad that I did because it definitely would have been too wide the first time. So I cut quite a lot of length out. It fits perfect. This is really, truly one of the pieces that I reach for the most. And I'm surprised by that because I thought with this jacquard pattern that it wouldn't be super practical in Amsterdam on a day-to-day basis. It maybe felt like it would be a little bit too dressed up, but I don't find that at all. I think, you know, the color choices that I made, the yarn, everything about this is perfect. And I wear this for sure on a weekly basis the second it gets cold. And I love this yarn so much that I'm actually considering using it for some sort of matching sweater. Not with a jacquard pattern, but I really just want to make a very basic sweater with this darker brown landlust and just have something that I can throw on over. So if you also have a suggestion for a pattern, I was thinking of doing a second sweater number 11 light, but maybe this is a good chance to make another pattern that's maybe a bit newer to me. So yes, that is the fancy Pepita skirt, and beyond happy with that. And then it actually goes very nicely into the next pattern, which is the sweater number 11 light by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And it's actually a modified version. So hers has a very long, I think twisted rib turtleneck that you fold down. It has twisted rib details. I ended up seeing a version on Instagram by, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I saw a version on Instagram that somebody else had made with this modified collar and ribbing, and I knew that I really wanted that. So it was a sweater that had been on my list for a while. I actually already owned the pattern, and I decided to just go ahead and cast that on. I actually only finished this in January of this year. And so I know it's a little bit early to be saying, oh, well, this is a 5-star knit, but I have never worn a sweater so much. Like, this ticks every box of what I want in a sweater. It is super oversized, which I didn't know that I even liked, but this is about 35 centimeters of positive ease. And it really feels like throwing on a cozy sweatshirt, but like a really beautifully done sweatshirt. And I picked such good yarn on this. It's made with the Gapard Garn Pure Lana, which is a 50-50 alpaca merino blend. And then I was originally intending to hold that yarn on its own because I thought it would make a nice sweater without mohair. However, I gauge swatched for that and it really was a bit too loose of a gauge, and I didn't have enough yarn to size down to do a tighter gauge but a bigger size. And it also just honestly, the yarn didn't have enough dimension to it to really feel special on its own, at least not for this sweater. So I made a last minute decision after swatching to go ahead and order Knitting for Olive mohair in the color Oatmeal. And I'm so glad that I did that because it added a ton of dimension to this. It just gave that yarn a little bit of a grayish brown property to it. So I'm very glad that I made that decision, and it just makes this whole piece so much cozier and wearable. For my version, I just did 7 rows of the ribbing and then folded over the collar. I originally actually did 10, and then I felt it was sitting too high, so I ripped it back and modified. And then I personally don't love twisted rib a lot, and so I decided on this to just do straight ribbing, and I'm glad that I did that because I think it turned out really impeccable on this piece. I think it's really well done, if I do say so myself. Even though this is a newer piece in my wardrobe, it is definitely the sweater that I really want to make more of. So I'm already dreaming of a mid-tone brown, a darker brown, maybe a brighter color. I don't want to get bored of making this one, but it's so perfect in so many ways. And every time I post this sweater, I get a ton of compliments. And it goes really, really well with my fancy Pepita skirts. So even though they're not the exact same tones of brown, they do pair really beautifully together because they're in the same color family. I'd say most weeks I wear that, and actually it's the 2 pieces that I pair together when I just want to feel really good about myself in an outfit in the winter. So paired with some black Chelsea boots and black tights, this is really my go-to outfit with them together. And then the final sweater on the list is one that I finished in April of this year, and that is the Cognac Sweater by Atelier Caston. And I knit this as part of the knit along that Yevgenia from Nicotina Knits and I did together. In this one I used the Gapard Garn Kid Seta in the color 240, which is Red Panda. So this was actually mohair that I bought to pair with another yarn for my Popo jacket, and then I had bought some other yarn when that didn't work out to try to pair it with an orange that ended up being too bright. And just in general, I was having a really tough time pairing this mohair with any other single strand of something. So when this pattern came along, I decided, you know what, I have exactly the right amount of yarn. I'm just gonna go ahead and hold this double and make a sweater. And I'm really glad that I did that. I don't know necessarily if I would usually have just purchased this mohair on its own to make a mohair sweater. it is very orange and bright compared to what I would normally make. But I'm really, really glad that it worked out this way, because this is a sweater that I love the color of. I love that I made this in only mohair. This pattern originally called for a fingering and mohair held together on a much looser gauge. When I swatched, I knew I didn't want my mohair to be very, very see-through. So I went down in needle size, knit it at a tighter gauge, but increased the size that I made for myself. I think I knit a size 3 versus 2. And I'm glad that I did that, because I think, this is the perfect gauge and it works really well with this mohair just held double. The construction on this is also very interesting. It is a set-in sleeve. Marina from Atelier Caston does such beautiful designs. I highly, highly recommend this pattern, as well as her sea salt tee that I made this year. I know she's also coming out with a new sweater that I can't remember the name of, but I'll insert. She, similar to Ines from Vertknit, just writes beautiful patterns, really thinks through the construction, and I'm so happy with how this one fits. So I just opted to do the I-cord finishing on this rather than ribbing. I don't really like ribbing on a mohair item. I think the length, the yarn, the color, the fit, everything is so good on this. I'm incredibly happy with how it turned out. I wasn't expecting that. I knew I was going to really like the overall fit and design of this, but I really didn't think I would like the mohair and color on this, because I just kind of used it because I needed to cast on with something, and this is what I had. So this ended up being a really pleasant surprise. And I think I also learned through this that knitting with mohair only is really suitable to the Amsterdam climate. So it's not too heavy, but it's very insulating. It works really well in the very damp, humid climate here. And so I find that I can wear this without feeling like I'm very closed in with a heavy sweater. So I'm actually considering making another one of these. I do have a fingering and mohair ready to go, but I've opted to do a different pattern because I would have to knit it at the looser gauge. I really want to knit this again at the tighter gauge, and I'm thinking I'm just going to actually do a dark brown version. I have some leftover mohair from another project, and so I just need to buy a few balls. Yeah, I think I'll do this as essentially exactly the same sweater, just in a different color. So it's interesting because I think everything I've talked about today is a pattern that I would make again for myself, which is a really good sign. I definitely don't want to be the person that just keeps knitting the same patterns over and over, but I think when you find one that you love and the fit is so good, you can easily change it up with different yarns and different colors. But these pieces really just, I feel good in them. I love the way they fit. I love the way they feel, and I want more. So those are the 5 patterns that I wanted to go through today. This was so much fun to just talk about all the pieces that I've made and why I love them. I really need to do more of this, just looking back. And like I said, it's interesting that I think I had kind of a 2-year gap where I wasn't really making a lot that I loved, and maybe it was partly because of this channel or just not understanding my own personal style yet, and I'm still working through that. But I think with each piece lately, I'm definitely getting better and better. It's much rarer now that I make a piece that I don't really enjoy, at least for a period of time. So I just want to continue with that in the new year. I also think it's probably not realistic that you're going to make something, 5-10 years ago and still love it now. Even when you buy something in retail, everything kind of ebbs and flows, styles come and go, and your taste changes over time. So it's normal that you're going to make a lot of stuff that years down the road you don't want to wear anymore. But I think it's really great to see that there are those pieces that they're still in style. You feel great in them. They're very classic pieces that really can carry you through. And so I really want to find more of those pieces and also take a moment to really learn what I loved about those. So I think going through this exercise too, I see maybe I do need to make some more bold color choices, but be very intentional about those. So really making sure they fit in my color palette. They are colors that I think I'm going to enjoy longer term. But yeah, that deep petrol and this orange color, very happy with them. Not colors I would typically have chosen for myself, but definitely pieces that I really enjoy. I also see that I really like the sweaters that have alpaca in them, so I would like to make more alpaca, more mohair only, and I think more knitted skirts. I already have 3 in my wardrobe, but I think I can definitely use more. I want more. And so I'm going to see if I can find those because they're very practical pieces for me. I really love to wear skirts. Those are things that for me will probably always stay in my wardrobe. And even the other knitted skirts that I have, the only reason I'm not talking about them today is because they are very, very new and I don't think I've had enough time with them yet. So that's everything that I wanted to share today. Don't forget to tell me which pieces you've made that you still love to this day. And also let me know if you'd like to see a summer version of this later or have me talk about the knits that I didn't end up loving and why. I definitely have a lot of those, not necessarily still with me because some of them have been given away, but I'd be happy to do a video about that as well. And of course, you can expect a new wear test video coming up in the new year. I am really looking forward to sitting down and recording one of those. I haven't done it in a while, but also I didn't have a lot of new knits in the last year. So that will probably be on the shorter side of things, but I have a few pieces I also want to go look back that I made, a year ago and update you on how I'm liking them now. So that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you'll stick around and I'll see you in the next episode.